Welcome to Great Pubs of Wales, where I'll be visiting some of the best known and best loved pubs in the country. This week's pub is the Old House at Llangynwyd near Maesteg, which in 2001 was voted Whisky Pub of the Year, and where every New Year's Day they still enact the ancient Welsh tradition of Mari Lwyd, where a bloke dressed up as a dead horse gains entry to people's houses and molests the womenfolk before sitting down for a meal. Nice little job. The pub dates from 1147 and has been described as South Wales' best kept secret. Not anymore, it's not. The hilltop village of Llangynwyd stands in magnificent isolation overlooking the former coal mining Llangynwyd Valley. And in the middle of the village is the pub. Extensions have been added over the years, but the old bits are really old. The thatched roof looks like it's been here longer than the pub. And the village itself is even older, dating from the 6th century, earning it a brown heritage sign. The stone cross commemorates the tragic love story of Anne Thomas, the maid of Kevin Udva and Will Hopkin. We'll hear all about that later, but first things first. Or should I say, thirst things first, because I'm after a pint, innit? The old house has been in the same family for 3 generations and has just passed from father, Big Richard, to son, Little Richard. The grandfather was also a Richard, so that makes Little Richard Richard III as well. It's confusing, but at the same time, not confusing. Nice jugs. Big Richard.
Correct.
I'm Little John. Nice to
Little
meet
John,
you.
how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Pint for you, try that, see what that's like.
Well, I'll have a full pint if you don't mind.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah?
Belong to camera, do you?
I'm on camera, yes. So, how long, is it 40 years, am I right? You've been the landlord here?
Not quite right. My father was the landlord before me. He died 30 years ago. So I've been running it about 33 years.
So your dad, big, ever so big Richard. You're Big Richard, your son is
Little Richard. Who is now running the business. But when we came here, this was a tumble-down old pub. My parents came in here and it was, well, it was nothing. And now it's been successful for years and years and years.
The old house caters for everyone, women as well as men. And the addition of a restaurant has proved extremely popular.
In the history books it says the old tavern. Now when it actually became the old house, no one seems to know. But in that time there was 4 pubs in this village. And one on the hill. That closed in 1921.
5 pubs in one small village does give the impression that Llangynwyd was a community of alcoholics, but it makes more sense when you realise that just down the valley there were 7 coal mines. And coal miners were pretty partial to a pint, weren't they? Cyril, I've been told that this pub dates from 1147. Would you say that's true?
The Margam charters go back to 1147 when Margam Abbey was built. Whether the pub was here or not, no one knows, but pilgrims on their way to Margam, Neath Abbeys and St David's and possibly on to Ireland may well have stopped here on their journey to and fro from St David's, especially because 2 journeys to St David's was equal to 1 to Rome.
What, you only had to go once to Rome but twice to St David's? That's a bit of an insult, isn't it? Or do penance, you've got to go twice to Wales. Yeah, so what's the oldest building locally then, would you say?
Well, the tower of the church is dated back to about 1400. The village itself probably dates back to the 5th and 6th centuries because St Cynwyd, the patron saint, is supposedly here in the age of the saints.
Right.
And the graveyard and the church is the Llan.
The church is just across the road and its graveyard is huge, particularly for a village of only 12 houses. Where do they all come from? And where do they all go?
If you look around the cemetery, it's actually amazing where they used to carry all the coffins from. And they used to carry them, and halfway up the hill there was a pub, and they used to put the coffin on the stones. There was a plinth outside, and they used to put them there, go in for a swig, and then carry on up the hill. But it's amazing. There's families there from all over Wales in this graveyard.
Oh, it's not just local people then?
No, if you go around there, it's amazing. It's amazing how far the people come or came years ago to be buried.
To die.
Yeah. But now, sadly, lots of people want to get buried in Llan, but it's full. So it's all creme now.
Standing room.
Yeah. So there's no room in Llan. That's the sad thing.
There's an affinity with places of worship. This was a nonconformist chapel until it was joined to the old house and turned into a nonconformist restaurant. It's had other uses too. And now there's a second restaurant. Well, they needed somewhere to put all the jugs, didn't they? And next to the playground, a helicopter landing field. Seriously.
And we named that restaurant out there the Llangynwyd Evans Garden. And the reason for that is that Llangynwyd Evans is the gentleman who was the only man that carried on the tradition of the Mari Lwyd, which is associated with this pub.
The Mari Lwyd is a very ancient ritual, and it was thought that the horse would bring good luck to anyone it touched. The leader, Llangynwyd Evans, would take the horse around the village, where it paid particular attention to any ladies it encountered, nudging and biting them until they gave it something to eat and drink.
We associated with Christmas. I think you must remember, I suppose, it was a pre-Christian custom, so hence it would have been involved with the fertility rites.
And isn't it something to do with the death of the old year and the birth of the new?
Yeah, I think that's one of the important elements that we talk about the Christmas season, but the main issue would have been the fact that it was the winter solstice.
Right.
And at that time of year, I mean, a successful harvest, I suppose, was even then much in their minds. So they would try and ensure that whatever powers are out there, that they get them on their side, you know, to ensure a successful harvest.
Wel, tyman i'n dawad, gobeithion diniwad, I ofyn am genad, I ofyn am genad, I ofyn am genad.
And why a horse's skull?
I think a horse assumed great importance within communities at a very early stage. So I think the horse is one element, but there were many other animal guises, if you like, at that time of year.
Is it specific to Wales, would you say?
No, there were similar customs in the Midlands, in other counties in England. But of course, the term Mari Lwyd is specific to South Wales and the South Wales coalfield. And it's interesting, even in a Welsh context, that the majority of the Mari Lwyd parties were involved in South Wales and in Glamorgan in particular and Gwent. This barring of doors obviously is interesting to the Mari Lwyd because they try and secure entry in order to have a drink or whatever it is and to be entertained. But there are examples, for instance, I think on Shrove Tuesday of school children barring the teacher. You know, they'd want an extra day's holiday, so they'd bar the teacher out of the school. There are examples of barring people at harvest time. So, you know, there's presumably of an us and them situation, for whatever reason.
Llangynwyd Evans is now immortalised on the sign outside the pub. And there's a weird kind of symmetry about that, because on the other side of the road is St Llangynwyd's church. And here's Gwyn Evans, son of Llangynwyd, who's making sure that the Mari Lwyd tradition is safe for another generation. And now, if you'll excuse us, there's a certain ritual that has to be performed.
Hey! Wel, dyma ni'n dawad gyfeillion diniwad I ofyn am genad, I ofyn am genad, I ofyn am genad I gani.
We went through all this last year and the year before. I hear you knocking, but you can't come in. No, you can't come in. No, you can't come in. Here.
Os na chawn I genad, rowch glywed ar ganiad, pa fodd mai madawiad, pa fodd mai madawiad, pa fodd mai madawiad, nos no.
I've already told you, you're not coming in. Oh, how many times, oh, how many times do I have to tell you? Get it! Oh, all right. All right, come in. Go on, in you go. Hey, up, Gwyn. Come on, Eddie.
Gwyn, you were singing there in Welsh, but you're not a Welsh speaker, am I right?
That's correct. I learned all the Welsh verses from my father.
How many years did he do it for?
He's supposed to have been going out to the Mari Lwyd from when he was 13-year-old.
Right.
And he was born in 1910. Yes, and I've kept it going from 1996 until now.
Yeah.
So hopefully I can keep going a few more years.
Oh, let's hope so. I'd just like to see Shergar there having a drink of his pint. Go on, Shergar. That's what I call necking your pint.
Oh, there we are.